G'day, my name's Nathan Lindsell, and welcome to episode number 43 of The Fine Art of Distraction. So, on today's episode, I'm going to be doing something very, very special for someone that's very, very special in my life. But before I tell you what I'm going to be doing today, I have to show you the dry result of last week because it turned out way better than I could have ever dreamed of. How awesome is this? I'm absolutely super stoked with how this turned out. Now, I'm not too sure if the glare from the light is sort of making it hard to see, and I apologise if it is, but how awesome is that? So cool. Now, my mum absolutely loved this so much that she actually wanted it at Nana's funeral. And actually, Nana's funeral was yesterday. So this was actually on display at Nana's funeral on the altar. So my heart was filled with so much love knowing that Mum loved it so much that she wanted Nana's angel wings on display for everyone to see. And Mum, you actually don't know this, but I actually painted this for you in honour of Nana. So yeah, so you've always got Nana's angel wings floating around you. Yes, but I'm absolutely so happy with it. And now it's actually not finished yet. I'm actually going to be doing something in the middle. I have a plan for it, but I need to sort of do a bit of planning first because I don't want to ruin it. And I need to sort of do a couple of practice runs first on some blank bits of paper before I actually do it on here. I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to be doing just yet because I need to practice it first. And if I can't do it, I'm not going to do it. Alrighty, so let's talk about what I'm going to be doing today and who that special person is in my life that I'm doing the pour for. So when this actually airs, it'll be the 15th of January, which is my mum's birthday. So Mum, happy birthday. I love you so much. And today's pour is actually for you. Like, it's 100% dedicated to you. Now, my mum loves all of us kids so much. There's my brother, Jeff, which unfortunately he's not with us anymore. There's myself, and then there's also my sister Corinne. And yeah, she absolutely adores all of us. And there's also, can't forget my dad, Des. Mum loves us all. But yeah, Mum is like my biggest fan, my number one fan. When I was able to play the drums, Mum actually came to every single one of my... Sorry. I'm getting a bit emotional because I can't play the drums at the moment, and that absolutely kills me. Yeah, so my mum is my biggest fan, and she always came to every single one of my shows. I think out of like the 100+ shows that I've put on, she might have only missed 3 shows. And like, even when we toured down to Melbourne, Mum came and turned up at the show. So like, sorry. Yeah, so Mum is definitely my biggest fan. So I thought, today, why not? Because it's her birthday, that I'm going to be doing something extremely special for her, using the colours of her other love. Her other love is actually the Parramatta Eels, which is really strange because everyone else in our family, we're all Cronulla Sharks fanatics. So when it comes time to for when Cronulla is versing Parramatta, it's a bit of a war. Not really. But that's what I'm going to be doing today. I'm going to be doing a pour for my mum in the Parramatta Eels colours. And But I'm not going to be doing a normal pour. I'm actually going to be doing resin. So instead of using paints and pigments, well, actually, I am going to be using pigments, but I'm going to be colouring the resin. And I'm going to be doing a cheese board or a cutting board of some sort. So then Mum can actually use this particular item or use the cheese board rather than having it hung on her wall. She can actually use it like when her friends come around, she can put some cheese on it, some crackers and all that sort of stuff. But I've actually got a little sort of experimental secret that I'm going to be doing with it as well. So yeah, so that's what I'm going to be doing today. I'm going to be doing a cheese board using the colours of the Parramatta Eels, especially for my mum, because I love you, Mum, so much. And thank you for being my #1 fan. Alright guys, now that I've told you what I'm going to be doing today and I showed you the dry result, let's head over to the table. I'll show you what products I'm going to be using and then yeah, let's get going. Thanks guys. Alrighty then, so here's all the products we're going to be using today, and as you can see, I've actually got 2 different types of resins, but we'll get to that in a second why I've got 2 different types. Firstly, to do a coloured cheese board, you're going to need something to cut the cheese on. Cut the cheese. Sorry. I don't know why I'm losing it so much. Cut the cheese. I'm so immature. Anyway. Basically, you're going to need something to cut things on. So basically, I actually bought this cheese board already made as a cheese board. So if you actually go out and buy an already made cheese board or some sort of cutting board, basically it's actually going to have like oils and waxes on it. And manufacturers actually put those oils and waxes on to protect the timber from being wet. So basically what you're going to have to do is actually sand it back. So I've already sanded that back. So the handles are actually already off. And I've already sanded it. So it's ready to go. So the resin's actually going to bond to that pretty easily. Okay. Now there's 2 different ways that you can actually colour the cheese board. Basically, you can do an acrylic pour over the top using acrylic paints and then seal it with a clear coat of resin, or you can actually colour the resin and then once that sets, then you can do a clear coat over the top. Sometimes you don't need to do a clear coat of resin when you do coloured resin, but in this case, I'm actually going to need to do a clear coat of resin. And the reason for that being is because when the actual colours actually set and cure, I'm actually going to be putting these stickers on the cheese board. So then when I put the stickers on and I put the clear coat over the top, that's basically going to seal those stickers in. So no matter how many times the board gets washed, those stickers will never, ever come off. And it'll actually be part of the cheese board itself. Okay? So the colours that I'm actually going to be using today are actually the colours from the Parramatta Eels. And the colours that I'm using are from this little piggy, otherwise known as TLP. And the colours are TAFFY, and this one here, there's actually 2 reasons why I've actually chosen this particular yellow. Yes, the first reason is because yellow is in the Parramatta Eels. And the second reason, and I think this is actually the cool reason, because of the name. Check out the name. So the name is called SUBMARINE. Can anyone see what's going on there? Yellow, submarine. The Beatles! Now, my mum is a huge Beatles fan. So the fact that this little piggy actually have one of their yellows called Submarine, I figured This is the perfect yellow to use in a project for my mum. You! Alrighty, so let's actually start talking about the resin and why I've got two different types here. Firstly, basically, the top coating of resin that I'm going to be doing needs to be a food-safe resin. And the art resin just here, basically that is food safe because it's got no VOCs, COVs and BPAs, which basically means that it's actually food grade. Whereas the Clearpox just here is not food safe. So a lot of manufacturers sort of advertise that they've got no VOCs, COVs, BPAs, doo-doo-dees, da-da-das, blah-blah-bees, blah-blah-blahs. And basically, that means that it is a lot safer to use. So they do advertise saying that you don't need a respirator, but I'll tell you what, I mean, I'm guilty of it. I've actually used resin that has none of the VOCs and COVs and all that sort of stuff. And I haven't used my respirator because I've been told that you don't need to wear it. But I figured, actually, that's pretty silly because it's my health that I'm looking after. So even though they say that you don't need to wear a respirator for these particular types, I say still wear it anyway. So now, there's another reason why you should be wearing a respirator with this particular project, and that's because of the pigments. Now, pigments are actually quite fine, and when you actually open up a jar of pigments, you'll actually see like a dust cloud sort of come out. That's actually really, really, really fine particles of pigments. And if you're breathing in them constantly, that's basically going to sit on your lungs. So it's actually not a good thing at all. So that's my big tip for the day. Basically, even if your resin says that it has no VOCs, COVs, BPAs, and all that sort of jazz, I say still wear a respirator anyway. Alrighty? While I'm talking about safety, another thing that you should be wearing is actually gloves. Yes, we wear gloves so your hands don't get dirty and sticky and all that sort of jazz, but resin is actually a chemical. So when chemicals get on raw skin, it can cause quite bad skin irritations and sometimes can actually burn as well. So look after yourself. Wear some gloves when you're working with resin, and also make sure you wear a respirator. Alrighty. So some of the tools that we're going to be needing today are, we need some measuring cups. We also need something to stir the resin with. Now I'm actually going to be using my hand drill here. Now this one's actually specifically designed for mixing resin, so it's actually set at quite a low speed. If you're using a normal drill, make sure that you set the speed quite low, because if you have it set on a high speed and you're using the paddle, you're going to introduce quite a lot of bubbles into the resin, and bubbles and resin don't play well together. I mean, our friend Bubbles, yes, she can play with resin, and I'm sure they play really well together. Hi, Bubbles! But yeah, but bubbles in resin, we don't want that. So by mixing it and stirring it at a very, very slow speed, you're basically going to reduce the amount of bubbles that actually get introduced into the resin. And I mean, you can get rid of the bubbles by hitting it with a blowtorch, or even giving it a spray with isopropyl alcohol. That'll get rid of the bubbles. Another thing that we've got a level just here. Always when you're doing resin projects, make sure your playing surface is basically level, because resin is a fluid and it's going to fall to whatever side is the lowest, okay? another thing that we've got here is actually some tape. Basically, I'm going to tape around the outside of the board, basically making like a pool around it. So basically, when I pour the resin in there, it's going to be contained inside the tape. And then a couple of hours later, I'm going to peel that tape away. So then the resin will actually slowly start to sort of drip over the sides and sort of cover the sides as well. Alrighty guys, now that I've told you what I'm going to be using today, I'll clear off all of this, then I'll start mixing up some resin, and then yeah, we'll get going. Thanks guys. Okay, so we're just making sure that we've got a level playing surface first, and we're already level, because I made sure of it. So we've got level that way, and we've also got level that way. Alrighty. Now, another thing that we need to make sure, when you're actually about to mix your resin, make sure you look to see what type of measuring you need to do. Like whether you're measuring by weight or by volume. So the clear epox and also the art resin is mixed by volume, and other resins are mixed by weight. So see how this actually says measure ratio by weight? That means when you mix this particular resin, you need scales rather than a measuring cup. So that's a massive, massive, massive tip that I'll sort of let you guys know. When you're about to mix your resin, make sure you research to find out whether it's by weight or by volume. Okay? Because otherwise, if you're mixing something that's by weight and you mix it by volume, then your ratio is actually going to be off. Okay? So definitely that's my big tip for the day. When mixing resin, make sure you check to see if it's measured by weight or by volume. Alrighty? So now that I've got that out of the way, we'll mix up some resin. Alrighty, so we're basically about to mix it up, and the clear epox is actually a 2-to-1 ratio. So basically that means I need 2 parts of part A and 1 part of part B. Now, we basically need roughly around about 550 mils of resin to do this particular pour. So basically, to make my life a lot easier, I'm going to round up to 600 mils. And it's always better to go a little bit more than less, because you don't want to have to mix up, say, 50 mils of resin at the last second. So I'm going to go up to 600 mils. So that basically means I'm going to use 400 mils of the actual part A and 200 mils of the part B. Alrighty? And with resin, this is pretty much the only product that you don't shake the bottle before you open it. Do not shake the bottle of resin before you actually pour, because you're basically going to introduce 1,000,001 bubbles, and you don't want that. Alrighty, so we're going to put 400 mils of part A. $400 just there. And then we want to bring this up to 600 mils, so that's 200 mils. There we go.
Okay, so I'm just doing a quick voiceover at the moment because I've actually put my respirator on and there's no way you'd hear what I'm talking about. So I'm basically mixing the resin together, the part A and the part B together. And now I'm using my drill to mix it just to make life a lot easier. If you are using a drill, make sure that you select a very slow speed. If you don't have a speed selection, just press on the trigger lightly. Also, when you're mixing resin, whether you're using a drill or a paddle pop stick or some sort of stirring device, make sure you thoroughly scrape the sides of the container. Basically, you need to make sure that you get all of part A and all of part B combined together properly. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm actually adding the colour. So I add roughly around about 2 teaspoons of the colour pigment. This is actually a very small spoon that I'm using. It basically is half a teaspoon. So I actually put 4 of these scoops in to equal 2 teaspoons. I could have probably used half the amount, but I actually wanted the colour to be quite rich, so I used roughly around about 2 teaspoons of the colour itself. Now, I will be using my drill again to actually stir it, but again, make sure you select a very slow speed because you don't want to introduce any bubbles into the resin. You can get rid of the bubbles if you get bubbles in your resin by either spraying a little bit of isopropyl alcohol on it or using your blowtorch and doing a quick sort of blowtorch hover over the top of it. If you are using the blowtorch in the cup, make sure it is only very, very quick because you don't want to melt your cup. All right, guys, I'll leave it with you for a little bit. I'll put some music on while I'm mixing the other colour. Yeah, all right, thanks, guys.
Alrighty, so now that these are mixed up, we're just going to let them sit for a while. Let them actually heat up for a little bit first. Because if we poured them back into this cup here, because that's what we're going to do, we're going to sort of layer it in this cup, what's actually going to happen, because the resin is too viscous, meaning too thin, basically they're just going to blend together and then just make like an aqua sort of colour. So by letting them set for a little bit first and then pouring them in the cup, we'll keep the colours separated for a little bit longer. Well, it'll keep the colours separated for the pour, I should say. Okay, so we can notice some bubbles sort of popping up to the surface. That's what we're actually wanting to see. We're actually wanting the bubbles to be released. So while we're waiting for these bubbles to get released and the resin to sort of warm up, we'll prep the surface. Alrighty, so we're just going to double check that we're level. We look good that way. And we look good that way. Perfect. My leveling table works. Phew.
Okay, so I'm just doing another voiceover because I got my respirator on at this stage, and basically what I'm doing here is making sure that there's no bubbles in the resin. So I'm hitting it with the blowtorch just to get rid of those bubbles, and now I'm also checking to see if the resin's heated up enough. I've noticed that it has heated up enough, so now I can actually start pouring it into the 1 cup. Okay, so if you watch this resin that I'm pouring in right now, it actually starts to sink quite fast, and this next bit of resin also sinks quite fast. The reason for that being is because those smaller containers are actually starting to thicken up, while the big container is still a little bit more viscous, meaning a little bit thinner. So therefore, those thicker ones are actually going to sink straight to the bottom. But that's not a bad thing, because those resins that are sinking to the bottom will actually be the last bit that gets poured out, and because it's actually a little bit thicker than the top bit, it's actually going to be nice strong lines. Okay, so now that we're actually pouring it onto the board, at this stage you actually want to pour it out quite slowly and at a steady pace, because you don't want those colours to blend any more than they already have. And you'll notice as I get down to the bottom of the container, the colours actually start to become a lot more rich, which is opposite to what happens with acrylic paint. Because the bottom of the cup is actually quite thick, those colours are actually staying as their own colour. So therefore, you get those nice, strong, rich lines at the bottom of the cup rather than being at the top. Alright guys, I'll stop talking for a little bit, and yeah, I'll put some tunes on.
Alrighty guys, this is looking wicked cool! Yahoo! So now we're just going to get rid of some of the air bubbles just by putting the blowtorch on it. Alrighty guys, I'm really happy with what I'm looking at, so yahoo! So basically I'm going to let this sit for a couple of hours, and then I'm going to come back and take the tape off, and then that'll basically allow the resin to sort of flow over the edge. Alright guys, so until then, I'll turn off the camera, and we'll come back in a couple of hours. Well, for you guys it'll be a couple of seconds. Thanks, guys.
Okay, so I'm just doing another voiceover, and at this stage it's been a couple of hours since I actually poured the resin on the board. But at this stage, I'm actually realizing I actually made quite a big mistake. What I actually should have done before I poured the color resin on, I should have actually done a clear coating of resin on the actual board itself to basically seal the timber. Because I didn't seal the timber with clear resin, what's actually happened is a lot of the air bubbles have actually been released from the timber and gone straight into that coloured resin, and you can actually see quite a few air bubbles in there. But you know what? I'm actually not too disappointed because I don't mind what it looks like. But if I am to do this sort of project again, I definitely will do a clear coat of resin first, let that completely dry, and then do the coloured resin on top, and then also do the clear resin on top of the coloured. So there's quite a few steps in it, isn't there? Alrighty, so basically what I'm doing here is I actually left the tape on just a little bit too long. That's another little boo-boo that I sort of will sort of remember for next time, to take the tape off maybe at about the hour-and-a-half mark rather than 2 hours, because the resin sort of set a little bit, and it didn't sort of flow over the sides as freely as it should have. So basically what I'm actually doing now is I actually hit it with a heat gun, or it's actually a hairdryer because I couldn't find my heat gun, to basically just heat up that sort of resin a little bit, just so it can sort of bend over the sides a little bit more. It actually didn't work as well as I sort of planned on sort of having the resin go over the sides. So when it actually completely set and cured, I actually do sand those sides completely back, so there's actually no coloured resin on the sides at all. And you know what? I actually much prefer how the finished product actually turns out. You will see at the end.
Alrighty then, so we're back and it's actually 2 days later, and I've actually left it for 2 days because I wanted it to actually set and cure properly. So it's perfectly hard. I can touch it, my fingers aren't sticky at all. So we're winning there. Now what we actually have to do now, before we put the stickers on and before we put the clear coating over the top, is actually sand it back. We're not sanding it back so you can see the wood. We're basically sanding it back just to scuff the surface. Because basically, the reason why we need to do that is because, well, we're actually putting another layer of resin over the top. And that new layer of resin actually needs something for it to bond onto. So, for example, when you scuff it up, it basically leaves a whole lot of little microscopic lines. So we'll do this as a much bigger version. So say if say if all of this was all of the scuff marks. Basically what's going to happen is when we actually put that layer of clear resin over the top, it's basically going to fill in all of the gaps and then basically like get that really strong bond. So then basically it's going to sort of level out nicely and be crystal clear when it's finished. So I guess that's probably the easiest way to explain why you need to actually sand it back before you do another coating. I hope it makes a little bit of sense. To me it makes sense, so yeah. Alrighty guys, so now because I'm actually gonna sand this, I'm actually going to bring it outside and do the sanding because when using resin, you want your room that you're doing the resin in to be completely dust free. And if I was to sand this back here in the art room, basically there's just going to be a buttload of dust flying around. And then when I sort of pour the resin over, all that dust is just going to go boom, 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 all over it and leave craters everywhere. So, yeah. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to bring this downstairs, sand it outside, and then come back up, give it a good wipe over with isopropyl alcohol, and then we'll put the stickers on. So I'm not going to bother about filming the actual sanding because everyone knows how to sand. So, all right, be back soon. Thanks, guys. Alrighty then, so we're back and it's all sanded back, so it's all scuffed up nicely. So now what we got to do, we got to hit it with some isopropyl alcohol. Okay, so now that I've actually sprayed it with isopropyl alcohol, there shouldn't be any oil from my hand at all on there. So, and when you're doing a top coat of resin, you don't want any oils at all on there because otherwise it won't bond properly. So at this stage, we'll put some gloves on so I can actually start handling it a little bit more. And also, a lot of people forget about this, but when you're actually handling your gloves, all of the oils from your fingers actually go on the gloves as well. So, yes, I've got gloves on, but what I'm actually going to do now is actually spray them with isopropyl alcohol. Basically to get rid of any oils that are on there. And it really doesn't matter if we get this one wet again, because all it is just isopropyl alcohol. So we can basically just go back, wipe it all off. Good as gold. Alrighty, so now that my gloves are also clean, now we can actually start talking about the stickers. So, with the stickers themselves, I actually went and actually cut around them last night, just because there was a white ring around it, and I didn't think it would look any good having that white ring. It'd look like it was a sticker. So I cut those white rings off, and then with this one just here, with the wording Parramatta Eels, I was cutting it out thinking that it was actually white behind it, and silly me, So I'm carving it along, and then I sort of peel it away and noticed that it was clear. So I didn't have to actually cut all around there. So, yeah, so up the top, I've still got the actual clear bit, but down the bottom, I've actually cut it away. But that's not a problem. You won't actually see that. Now, what we're actually going to do, we're actually going to stick these on and then put the clear coating over the top. I was thinking of putting them, so I'm not worrying about those ones up there. I was thinking about sort of putting it in a line, but I figured if I don't get it in center, it's going to look a bit weird. So what I've decided to do is I'm purposely going to put it offset. So then it doesn't really matter if I don't get it dead center. But I think that's how I'm going to sort of do it. Alrighty. So what I might just do, one quick spray of isopropyl alcohol just to get rid of any dust that might have appeared. Alrighty, so let's go. Once I put the clear coating of resin over, you actually won't see that that top of the clear bit just there. It'll get blended in. Yeah, so we're gonna put these. Actually, I might just turn it around just so I can sort of see what I'm doing. Alrighty, so that's that. Now, let's mix up some resin. So this is a 1-to-1 ratio, remember? So this is actually the food grade resin. And it's a 1-to-1 ratio. And we're going to need roughly around about, I'd say, 300 mils. So that's 150 mils of each. And this is measured by volume, not weight. Alrighty, so now that that's mixed up, I'm going to let that sit for about sort of 10-15 minutes to allow a lot of the air bubbles to release. And then once it started to heat up a little bit, then I'll actually pour it over the top. Alright guys, I'll come back in about 10 minutes. Thanks guys. Alrighty, so we're back. And it's actually been about 20 minutes, and you'll see here that it is completely bubble free. And that's what you actually want to see before you actually pour it out. Like, you don't want to see any bubbles at all. It's supposed to look like water. Alrighty? And if it's actually got a cloudy sort of mist to it, that means it's not mixed properly. Basically, you keep mixing until that cloudy mist disappears, and then you're right to go. Now it's starting to warm up a little bit. I might leave it for another couple of minutes, and then we'll get pouring. Alrighty, so it's actually warming up a bit now, which is perfect to actually start pouring. And now the reason why we actually wait for it to warm up and not sort of pour it straight away is because basically if you poured it straight away, it's actually quite viscous, like very thin, and it'll just sort of flow everywhere and not actually stick to the board. By letting it warm up a little bit, that means that the chemicals have actually have started to react with each other and are actually forming the actual resin itself. So when you actually feel that it's warming up, that means it's time to actually start pouring. But what I actually might do just before I pour, I might just quickly just do one little spray of isopropyl alcohol. But what I might do, I might just spray it onto the paper towel first, and then just wipe it over. Just because of the stickers there, I don't want anything to get underneath the stickers. And I'm just doing this basically to get rid of any dust that might have appeared in that sort of half an hour. All right, we're good to go. And you also want to pour it quite slowly, because that'll sort of prevent any sort of bubbles from happening as well. See how it sort of comes to life? Alrighty guys, there's not much more I can do with this now, except for maybe just go around one more time and do one more quick little scraping of the bottom, because again, we don't want a dirty bum, you know that? Basically I'm just going to leave this for overnight and come back and it should be ready to rock and roll. It's going to be 2 seconds for you guys, but it'll be at least sort of 12 hours for me. So, see you soon. Thanks guys. Alrighty guys, and we're back and it's finished! Yee-hoo! It looks well wicked! It turned out perfectly. There's no bubbles. I mean, there is a few bubbles in the coloured bit, but there's no bubbles on the top bit. It turned out wicked! Yee-hoo! I'm doing the happy dance. Do-do-do-do. I'm doing the happy dance. Do-do-do-do. Do-do-do. Ba-do-do-do. Happy, happy, happy! Yo, yo, yo! Yo! But how sick did it turn out? I love it. And I hope my mum loves it just as much. So I'll just turn it on the side just so you can see the sides. Now, I actually sanded it back. So it was like all the raw timber. Because the drippings that came over the side, like the colour ones, it sort of like didn't reach all the way to the bottom. I took the tape off too late. I should have taken it off much earlier, so then the colours would have dripped over like the clear did. So yeah, so the clear has actually gone all the way to the very bottom. And then yeah, so now all I got to do is basically sand all of that off. And because I'm sanding it, I actually have to reapply the oil and the beeswax and all that sort of stuff. So then this side is then waterproof. Because I'm sanding it back, I'm taking away that protection. So I need to basically put the protection back on. But yeah, how awesome did it turn out? I'm so happy! And I don't know if you remember how there was like half clear sticker around the Parramatta Eels bit. I knew that you wouldn't be able to see it. I'll just get rid of my fingerprint so I can zoom right in. But yeah, what I'll do, I'll pick it up so you can see that what I was talking about, how you can't actually see the sticker at all. If I can get rid of the ring light. So you can't see the sticker at all. How awesome is that? I'm trying to get the ring light out of the way. But yeah, that actually looks like it's like store-bought. I'm so happy with it. Yeah! Yoo-hoo! Yes, 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 yes! Woo! Yoo! Alright guys, if you can't tell, I'm actually pretty happy with this. And Mum, I hope you love this as much as I love it, because this was a pour that was like filled with love, because I love you so, so, so much, Mum. Alright, so before I get emotional again, I will say, I'd like to thank you so, so, so much for joining me on this episode. This episode was definitely a lot of fun for me, filled with a lot of emotions. And if you guys liked what you saw here today, and you think I'm deserving of a thumbs up, so I'm trying to do it the right way around for you, so I'll just do it this way. If you're thinking I'm deserving of a thumbs up, please hit the like button. If you haven't yet subscribed and you feel like subscribing to me, hit the subscribe button, then hit the little dark bell. That'll indicate when I actually upload new videos. And if you think any of your friends or family might like to see me create this, please forward it on to them and say, look what the Fooligan is up to again. Alright guys, one more time, thank you so, so, so much for joining me on this episode. I love doing these episodes, and especially these ones that mean a lot to me. And I have a feeling Mum's going to love it, just because it's Parramatta Eels, but also because I did it for her. Alright guys, one more time, thank you for joining me on this episode, and this is The Fine Art of Distraction.